In the scorching summer of 636 AD, on the dusty plains near the Yarmouk River, two of history's most powerful civilizations stood face to face in what would become one of the most decisive battles ever fought. This was not merely another military engagement. This was a confrontation that would determine the fate of empires, reshape the political landscape of the Middle East, and alter the course of human history for centuries to come. This is the epic story of the Battle of Yarmouk, where strategic brilliance triumphed over numerical superiority, where unwavering faith confronted imperial might, and where one of history's greatest military commanders demonstrated tactical genius that military academies still study today. To fully comprehend the magnitude of what occurred on those plains, we must first understand the context of a world in profound transformation. The year 632 AD marked the death of Prophet Muhammad, the founder of Islam, in the Arabian city of Medina. His passing left the nascent Islamic community at a critical juncture. Would this new faith survive the loss of its charismatic leader, or would it fragment and fade into historical obscurity like so many religious movements before it? The answer came swiftly and decisively through the institution of the Caliphate, the political and religious leadership that would guide the Muslim community forward. The first Caliph, Abu Bakr, immediately faced the monumental challenge of consolidating the Arabian Peninsula under Islamic authority, while simultaneously dealing with external threats from the two superpowers that dominated the region: the Byzantine Empire to the northwest and the Sassanid Persian Empire to the northeast. These were not merely powerful states, but ancient civilizations with centuries of military tradition, sophisticated administrative systems, and vast resources at their disposal. Against such formidable adversaries, the nascent Islamic State seemed hopelessly outmatched in every conventional measure of power. Yet, Abu Bakr and his successors possessed something that transcended material advantages: a revolutionary vision combined with extraordinary military talent. The early Muslim commanders understood that they could not defeat these empires through brute force alone. Instead, they would employ speed, mobility, strategic deception, and above all, the unshakable determination of warriors who believed they were fighting for a divine cause. This combination of spiritual motivation and tactical innovation would prove devastatingly effective. The Muslim expansion into Syria began not as a massive invasion, but as a series of carefully coordinated raids and probing attacks. These initial operations were designed to test Byzantine defenses, identify weaknesses, and secure strategic positions. Without committing to battles the Muslims could not win. The strategy demonstrated sophisticated military thinking, far beyond what one might expect from what Byzantine observers dismissively called desert tribesmen. These were not wild, barbarian hordes, but disciplined forces operating under coherent strategic direction. The early campaigns achieved remarkable success. Muslim forces, though relatively small in number, proved remarkably effective at exploiting the Byzantine Empire's vulnerabilities. The Byzantines, exhausted from decades of devastating war against the Sassanid Persians, had neither the resources nor the will to immediately confront this new threat with full force. Byzantine garrisons in Syria, often isolated and demoralized, fell one after another to the swift-moving Arab forces. In July 6, Muslim forces achieved a decisive victory at Ajnadain, a battle that opened the approaches to Syria's major cities. Damascus, the ancient jewel of Syria and one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world, fell to Muslim siege in September of that year. The fall of Damascus sent shockwaves through the Byzantine Empire. This was not some remote frontier outpost, but a city of immense strategic, economic, and symbolic importance. The Byzantine administration watched in growing alarm as city after city submitted to Muslim authority. The Battle of Fall followed, where the last significant Byzantine garrison in Palestine was decisively defeated and routed. With this victory, Muslim forces secured a major foothold in the entire Syrian region, establishing control over vital trade routes and agricultural lands. The speed and efficiency of these conquests astonished contemporary observers on all sides. How could these Arab armies, emerging from the harsh deserts of Arabia, defeat the professional soldiers of an empire that had ruled the Mediterranean world for centuries. The architect of these victories was Khalid ibn al-Walid, a man whose military genius would earn him the title Sword of Allah. Khalid's background was fascinating. He had initially fought against the Muslims at the Battle of Uhud, where his cavalry tactics had inflicted significant casualties on Muslim forces. After converting to Islam, he brought his formidable military skills to the service of the Caliphate. His understanding of cavalry warfare, combined with his ability to make rapid strategic decisions under pressure, made him arguably the most effective commander of his era. When Abu Bakr died his successor, Umar ibn al-Khattab, inherited a caliphate that was rapidly expanding but also facing increasing resistance. Umar was determined to consolidate and extend Muslim control deeper into Syria and beyond. However, in a decision that has puzzled historians for centuries, Umar replaced Khalid as supreme commander with Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah, a respected companion of the Prophet known more for his piety and diplomatic skills than military brilliance. Some sources suggest this decision stemmed from Umar's concern that Khalid's growing fame might overshadow the caliphate itself, while others point to political considerations within the Muslim leadership. Regardless of the reasons, Khalid accepted this demotion with characteristic discipline, agreeing to serve under Abu Ubaidah's nominal command, while continuing to exercise tactical leadership on the battlefield. With southern Palestine secured, Muslim forces advanced northward along ancient trade routes that had connected civilizations for millennia. The cities of Tiberias and Baalbek fell without significant resistance, their garrisons either fleeing or surrendering when confronted with the approaching Arab army. Amisa, another major Syrian city, was conquered early in 636. Each victory brought not only territorial gains but also crucial supplies, equipment, and sometimes recruits from local populations who saw Muslim rule as preferable to Byzantine taxation and religious persecution. The Byzantine Emperor Heraclius, observing these developments from his capital in Constantinople, finally recognized the existential threat facing his empire. Heraclius was no ordinary emperor. He had personally led Byzantine armies to stunning victories against the Sassanid Persians, recovering territories that had been lost and even capturing the True Cross, Christianity's most sacred relic from Persian captivity. He was a proven military commander who understood the stakes of what was unfolding in Syria. If the Muslims consolidated their hold on the Levant, they would control the wealthy provinces that provided much of the empire's revenue, its grain supplies, and its military recruits. This could not be allowed to stand. In May 636, Heraclius dispatched a massive expeditionary force to Syria with clear orders: check the Arab advance, recover lost territories, and drive the Muslim invaders back into the Arabian desert from which they had emerged. Command of this army was given to Vahan, an Armenian general with extensive military experience. The force assembled represented a significant portion of the Byzantine Empire's available military strength, estimated at approximately 60,000 soldiers, drawn from across the empire's diverse territories. This army was not a homogeneous force, but a coalition of different ethnic and regional contingents, each with its own commanders, fighting styles, and equipment. The Byzantine right flank consisted of Greek forces under the command of General Gregory, supported by cavalry positioned in the rear. These were professional soldiers from the empire's heartland, well-equipped and experienced. The left flank comprised Slavic forces commanded by the Slavic Prince Canatir, also with cavalry support. The Slavs were fierce warriors who had recently entered Byzantine service, bringing their own martial traditions to the imperial army. The center consisted of Armenian and Ghassanid Arab forces under generals Jabala and Derjan, again with cavalry support. The Ghassanids were particularly significant, being Christian Arabs who had long served as Byzantine allies and buffers against threats from the Arabian interior. Their presence in the Byzantine army represented the complex religious and political landscape of the region, where not all Arabs supported the Muslim cause. As this massive Byzantine force approached, the Muslim commanders faced a critical strategic decision. They could attempt to defend the territories they had conquered, potentially fighting isolated battles against superior numbers, or they could concentrate their forces to meet the Byzantine threat in a decisive engagement. Abu Ubaidah and Khalid chose the latter course. In a brilliant strategic withdrawal that demonstrated their tactical sophistication, they ordered all Muslim forces to abandon their recent conquests and regroup at the Yarmouk plains. Close to the Arabian Peninsula and their supply lines, this withdrawal was not a retreat born of panic but a calculated maneuver designed to choose the battlefield on favorable terms. The Yarmouk plains offered several strategic advantages. The location was close enough to Arabia to facilitate reinforcements and supplies while being sufficiently distant from Byzantine strongholds to prevent easy enemy reinforcement. The terrain featured the Yarmouk River, deep ravines that would channel troop movements and potentially trap an enemy force. Most importantly, concentrating the scattered Muslim forces would allow them to fight as a unified army, rather than piecemeal engagements where they could be defeated in detail. General Vahan, confident in his numerical superiority, pursued the Muslims onto the Yarmouk plains. As the two armies came within sight of each other, both sides began the careful process of deploying for battle. The Byzantines established their main camp near Al-Jabia, positioning themselves to defend one of the main Roman roads connecting Egypt and Syria. Vahan arrayed his troops along the Alin River, with their backs to the gorge in the south. The Byzantine formation stretched across the plain, an imposing sight that must have intimidated many observers. 60,000 soldiers in organized formations, cavalry positioned strategically. Banners displaying the cross and imperial eagles. The accumulated military might of an empire that had ruled the Mediterranean world for centuries. The Muslim army, though smaller at approximately 40,000 men, was arranged with equal care. Unlike the ethnically diverse Byzantine force, the Muslim army consisted primarily of Arab warriors united by faith and led by commanders who had proven their ability in previous campaigns. This unity of purpose and culture would prove to be a significant advantage in the brutal days of fighting ahead. Muslim forces were organized into divisions commanded by proven generals, Umar ibn al-As on the right flank, Yazid ibn Abi Sufyan on the left, and Abu Ubaidah nominally in overall command with Khalid ibn al-Walid as the tactical brain directing operations. As both armies settled into their positions, an extended period of negotiation commenced. This was not unusual in ancient warfare, where commanders often attempted to resolve conflicts through diplomacy before resorting to battle. The Byzantine Emperor Heraclius had specifically instructed Vahan to attempt to bribe the Muslim forces into withdrawing back to Arabia, or at minimum to stall negotiations until Sassanid Persian reinforcements could arrive. Despite their recent catastrophic defeat at the hands of Heraclius, the Persians had agreed to ally with the Byzantines against the Muslim threat. Recognizing that the Arab conquests endangered both empires equally, the Muslims, for their part, were also buying time. Caliph Umar was sending additional reinforcements from Arabia, and every day of negotiation allowed more troops to arrive and the Muslim army to prepare more thoroughly for the coming battle. For 3 months, emissaries traveled between the camps. Proposals were exchanged and both sides jockeyed for advantage while avoiding actual combat. This extended period of negotiation, far from being a sign of weakness or indecision on either side, demonstrated the high stakes both parties understood were at risk. Vahan grew increasingly concerned that prolonged delay might actually disadvantage the Byzantines. Despite theoretical numerical superiority, maintaining a large army in the field was enormously expensive and logistically challenging. Soldiers needed to be fed, equipment maintained, and discipline enforced. The longer the standoff continued, the more Vahan worried about the morale and cohesion of his diverse force. Finally, he decided to take matters into his own hands and requested a personal meeting with Khalid ibn al-Walid. The meeting between these two commanders has become legendary. Though like many such encounters, the details are disputed and likely embellished. According to traditional accounts, the Armenian general attempted to intimidate Khalid by commenting that the Arabs were nothing more than impoverished, hungry, wretched Bedouins scratching out a miserable existence in the desert. He then offered Khalid food, gold, and safe passage if the Muslims would simply leave Byzantine lands and return to Arabia. It was a calculated insult designed to demonstrate Byzantine superiority in Arab inferiority. Khalid's response revealed the ideological gulf separating these two civilizations. He was reportedly unimpressed by Vahan's condescension and worldly offers. Instead, Khalid called upon the Christian general to embrace Islam in exchange for peace, adding words that would echo through history. "If you refuse, there can only be war between us, and you will face men who love death as you love life." This statement encapsulated the Muslim conviction that paradise awaited those who fell in battle defending their faith, making them fearless opponents for whom death held no terror. Vahan was neither impressed nor intimidated by Khalid's words. He responded with his own defiant statement, reminding the Muslim commander that better men than them had tried to take Byzantine lands and all had been defeated. The Eastern Roman Empire had survived for over 1,000 years, weathering invasions by Goths, Vandals, Huns, and Persians. These desert warriors, however fierce their faith, would join the long list of failed invaders. The negotiations, which had dragged on for months, finally came to a definitive close. Battle was now inevitable. Vahan positioned his forces with careful attention to terrain and tactical advantage. His main camp near Al-Jabia protected his supply lines and provided a secure base. He positioned his main force with the gorge, protecting his southern flank, and his army arrayed along the Allan River, giving him both a defensive obstacle and a source of water. Before the general engagement began, according to the customs of the time, individual Muslim warriors stepped forward, calling upon Byzantine officers to engage them in single combat. These challenges were answered, and in the resulting duels, Muslim warriors killed several Byzantine officers. This preliminary bloodshed served multiple purposes. It boosted Muslim morale, demonstrated Arab martial prowess, and perhaps most importantly, it incited Vahan to order his numerically superior force to charge at the enemy lines. Testing the resolve and strength of the Muslim soldiers, the first day of battle began with Vahan unleashing his full force against the Muslim lines. The Byzantines outnumbered the Muslims approximately 60,000 to 40,000. A significant advantage that forced the Muslims to stretch their frontal lines more thinly to avoid being outflanked. This numerical disparity created immediate pressure on Muslim commanders, who had to defend a wider front with fewer men, meaning thinner formations and less depth to absorb casualties or rotate fresh troops to the front. The Byzantine charge crashed into the Muslim lines, with the weight of professional soldiers confident in their superiority. For hours, the two armies clashed in the brutal hand-to-hand combat that characterized ancient warfare. Spears thrust, swords swung, shields blocked, and men on both sides fell wounded or dying. The summer heat of Syria made fighting even more exhausting, with soldiers in armor struggling under the merciless sun. As the day wore on, it became clear that while the Byzantines had pressed the Muslims hard, they had not achieved a breakthrough. The Muslim lines had bent under pressure, but had not broken. As evening approached, Vahan ordered his forces to break off the attack and return to the Byzantine position near the Allan River. This was not a retreat, but a planned disengagement. Vahan's objective for the first day had been reconnaissance rather than decisive victory. He wanted to test the Muslim lines, identify weaknesses in their formation, assess the quality of their troops, and determine where his subsequent attacks should focus. The first day of fighting concluded with minimal casualties sustained by both armies compared to what would follow. Both sides now understood that this would not be a quick battle, but a prolonged struggle that would test endurance as much as courage. The next morning, Vahan attempted to seize the initiative through surprise. He ordered all of his soldiers to advance at dawn, hoping to catch the Muslims during their morning prayers when they would be vulnerable and disorganized. It was a sound tactical plan that might have worked against a less competent opponent. However, Khalid ibn al-Walid, demonstrating the vigilance that characterized all great commanders, had anticipated exactly such tactics. He had positioned scouts across the Yarmouk battlefield who maintained watch through the night. When the Byzantine army began its dawn advance, these scouts immediately alerted Khalid, giving the Muslims precious minutes to prepare. Though Vahan had lost the element of surprise, he remained confident in his superior numbers and opted to give battle according to his battle plan. His strategy was straightforward but sound. attacked the Muslim center to tie down the bulk of Khalid's forces, preventing them from reinforcing the flanks. While focusing the main assault on the Muslim flanks where Byzantine numerical superiority could be brought to bear most effectively, if successful, this pincer movement would surround and destroy the Muslim army. As the battle intensified, Khalid ibn al-Walid's center held firm despite being heavily outnumbered. Muslim discipline and cohesion proved decisive, allowing their formations to withstand sustained pressure. However, the flanks soon became the most dangerous points of the battlefield. On the Muslim right, the Byzantine general Kanatir launched a massive assault with his Slavic forces against Umar ibn al-As. The Muslim infantry, vastly outnumbered, fought fiercely but was gradually pushed back. Recognizing the danger, Umar ordered his cavalry forward to reinforce the line. The intervention slowed the Byzantine advance but could not stop it. Eventually, the Muslim forces were driven back to their own camp with nowhere left to retreat. At this critical moment, an extraordinary event occurred. Women from the Muslim camp rushed forward, some taking up weapons, while others released camels into the battlefield. The camels caused chaos among the Byzantine cavalry as horses panicked and refused to advance. In the confusion, heavily armored Byzantine riders were pulled from their saddles, and Kanatir's momentum collapsed. What had nearly been a decisive breakthrough stalled and then reversed. Khalid immediately seized the opportunity. Seeing gaps opening between Kanatir's force and the Byzantine center, he ordered Umar's cavalry to strike the exposed flank. The Muslim counterattack pushed Kanatir back toward the main Byzantine line. Though the Byzantines retained numerical superiority, Khalid's timing and maneuvering stabilized the right flank and turned disaster into survival. While the right was saved, the Muslim left faced even greater danger. With reserves committed elsewhere, Yazid ibn Abi Sufyan struggled against a methodical assault led by the Byzantine general Gregory. Greek infantry advanced steadily, supported by cavalry that pushed toward the Muslim camp. As Muslim soldiers fell back, they were met with harsh rebukes from Arab women who shamed them into standing their ground. This cultural pressure strengthened morale, and Yazid managed to stabilize the line near the camp. Once again, Khalid reacted decisively. After securing the right, he rode rapidly to reinforce the left. He detached a cavalry force under Durar ibn al-Azwar to strike the Byzantine center's flank, preventing reserves from aiding Gregory. Khalid then charged directly into the Greek forces, breaking their momentum and forcing a retreat. The killing of the Armenian commander Durjan during this phase was a major blow to Byzantine morale. As night fell, both armies withdrew exhausted, the Byzantine numerical advantage still unfulfilled. On the third day, Byzantine commander Vahan concentrated his forces on the Muslim right, aiming to break it with heavy cavalry. Cataphracts charged through gaps created by pressure on Muslim formations, pushing Umar and Shurabil back. Yet in doing so, the Ghassanid forces under Jabala overextended themselves. Khalid immediately exploited this error, leading a cavalry strike into their exposed flank. The counterattack turned into a slaughter, forcing the Ghassanids and Slavs to retreat in disorder once more. The fourth day brought Vahan's most dangerous plan, a coordinated advance across the entire front. While Kanatir and Jabala pressed the right, Armenian and Greek forces advanced against the center and left. Khalid faced the risk of total collapse. He ordered Abu Ubaidah and Yazid to advance on the left to slow the Byzantine attack, buying time to stabilize the right. Byzantine archers then unleashed devastating volleys, forcing the Muslim left to retreat. Gregory seized the moment, and Yazid's division briefly broke. Once again, Arab women took up arms, inspiring the men to stand firm. Khalid reinforced Shurabil and counterattacked, halting Jabala and forcing another Byzantine withdrawal. The fourth day ended in horrific exhaustion, with massive casualties on both sides. The battlefield was littered with dead water supplies were fouled with blood, and both armies were near collapse. The next morning, Vahan offered a truce. Many Muslim commanders considered it, but Khalid saw opportunity instead of weakness. He believed the Byzantines were equally exhausted and divided along ethnic lines. Rejecting the truce, Khalid prepared his boldest maneuver. He sent Dira with cavalry to seize a key bridge over the Wadi al-Rakid, cutting off Byzantine retreat and supply routes. On the sixth day, Byzantine General Gregory rode forward and challenged the Muslims to single combat. Abu Ubaidah himself accepted. After a fierce duel, Abu Ubaidah killed Gregory, sending shockwaves through the Byzantine ranks. Khalid immediately ordered a general advance. Despite heavy losses, the Muslim army surged forward, shocking their enemy. During the night, Khalid had concealed his cavalry and spread his infantry to exaggerate Muslim numbers. As infantry clashed in the center, Khalid unleashed his final strike. Leading nearly 8,000 cavalry, he emerged from concealment in a massive flanking charge against the Byzantine left. Dust filled the horizon as the mounted force thundered forward. Vahan realized too late that he had been outmaneuvered. His reserves could not respond in time. Khalid's cavalry enveloped the Byzantine flank, turning retreat into chaos. What followed would decide the fate of the battle and permanently alter the balance of power in the region.